Yeah, but that's all right. Okay, we're going to resume. We're going to start back up as the Fort Myers Beach Town Council meeting, regularly scheduled meeting of Thursday, August the 16th, 2021. It's now 5:51, and again, all present here, all council members present, town manager, town attorney somewhere, town clerk, and residents, and we also have a special guest that I'll introduce in a moment here. So we'll all stand for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Give sincere thanks for this opportunity to meet together and for this opportunity to become better acquainted with the members of our town. May we listen to one another intently with the purpose of bettering ourselves and our community. May we humbly accept the responsibilities assigned to us. May we carry out each of these responsibilities to the best of our capabilities. This assembly is composed of many old and fast friends, acquaintances of a very brief time, those who strive together, and some who have never met. Permit no one to leave here a stranger or less a person than when arriving. Since each of us is a part of all we have ever witnessed, let what we have observed be to the good of all. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're gonna. Next item is the approval of the final agenda. There were a couple of changes that the staff gave to us today about eliminating items. Continuing, excuse me, poor word. Continuing items D and E. If there are no other changes, is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is public comment. And before we begin our public comment, we're honored to have a special guest with us this evening. Just happened to be in the neighborhood and thought he'd crash in here. But it's our Congressman Byron Donalds. Congressman, come on up here and say hello to everybody. Let's say hello, Congressman.
Mayor, council, just wanted to by real briefly say hello to all. It's an honor to be here. I know you guys have work to do, so I won't have time. Really, it's not really a time for speeches. There's a lot going on in DC. I will tell you the one thing that my office is specifically working on right now that really matters, obviously to Fort Myers Beach, but all of Southwest Florida, deals with the new release program dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers is working on. We have about another year before this process is going to be finalized about what the Corps is going to do. But the one thing that we've already seen is that the LORA system, which we're currently under, is going to be revamped. Our belief is that the new LOSUM strategy is what they're calling it. It's going to be far more flexible. It's going to give the Army Corps the ability to kind of manage water flows on a day-to-day basis as opposed to the way LORA is operated, which kind of followed the model and didn't really think about much else after that. I think what they're going to do is going to be far more detailed, far more flexible for all the water needs, not only for Southwest Florida, but for all of Southern Florida. The last thing I really want to communicate to you on that, and especially to your constituents, is that although we know that water discharges affect our community, one thing I always try to remind all of our citizens that there's really about 6 constituencies when it comes to water, with all of the water that flows from Lake Okeechobee. And so what we're trying to make sure we have is a balanced approach to how water is going to be discharged, how the lake is going to be managed, and how the different projects that are going to come online as we continue through the projects with SERP, how all that works together to make sure that Southwest Florida gets the water that it needs. The nutrient loads are much lower in the water that we are receiving. Everybody can enjoy our environment and that owners are not interrupted, frankly, with algae blooms and things. That's the primary thing we're working on with respect to a local level. We Army Corps. I can tell you that the Corps actually been very responsive. They've been very open. Had many discussions, not just in our community, but in many communities around our state about the way the LOSUM process is going to work. Jesse Purdon, who's my district director, has been having far more detailed conversations with them about the specifics that our area needs. And we've had a lot of buy-in from stakeholders in our community, those people from the scientific community to water quality and ecology overall. And a lot of work. We're really happy to do it. We wanted to make sure that as this process continues, we get it right. And so that's our primary focus from a local perspective. With that, I don't know if you guys have any questions about anything. I can answer it, or I can just get out of here, let you get back to the business.
Well, we've got you here, Congressman. We might as well ask a few questions. Anybody have a question?
I'm just going to say, Mr. Mayor, if you will, I worked for a member of Congress for 16 years, and I know for a fact my member of Congress, who was a wonderful fella, never took the time to stop in the middle of a town council meeting. So I commend you for being here, and I thank you for taking the time to stop by and saying hello to folks. I appreciate it very much.
I don't think I've ever had a congressman that really wanted me. But I'll just say, the word they're hearing from a lot, especially the conservation groups here, is that the Caloosahatchee, with this new LOSUM agreement, is going to get potentially more releases. There's been a lot of steps taken, but it was devastating. It was heartbreaking to be here in 2018 when we had the red tide outbreak, and I volunteered for the Harry Chapin Food Bank to give food out to people who were wearing uniforms from resorts. They're hardworking people, and the devastation to our economy. It seems like this LOSUM agreement, the priorities seem to be elsewhere. I get the feeling like we are getting the short end of the stick because I don't know, maybe we're not loud enough. It just seems like we're not really getting our voice heard.
Well, I will tell you real briefly that if you look at what the Corps has done from what LORS was to what LOSUM is kind of look like it's going to end up, it goes to the flexibility that I was talking about. Back in February, according to the LORS schedule, we were supposed to get 2,100 cubic, what is it, CFS? Cubic feet per second in water was supposed to come down the Caloosahatchee River. Army Corps had noticed that there was a red tide bloom off of our coast at that particular time. So what the Corps decided to do was, instead of just following the model and releasing the 2,100 CFS, they actually released about 1,500. So this is the flexibility in the plan. I think that if you just look at models, that people aren't really looking at what's going to be coming next. I know for a fact the Corps is actually working on the detailed flexibility plan on the baseline of the model. Second point I will make is that it is not, in my view, it is not comparing apples to apples to compare us to the St. Lucie River. Facts are that the Caloosahatchee River takes far more water and holds far more water than the St. Lucie River actually can hold. That's the way the actual system was designed. So there's not going to be any scenario where we're going to take the same amount of water as the St. Lucie takes. Third thing is that the St. Lucie River doesn't require water all the time. The Caloosahatchee actually does. So we're going to be taking water, and I don't want anybody to misunderstand that point. I'll be very clear on that. The key thing we're trying to monitor now is the high stress periods, what that looks like. And so we've been able to make some adjustments already from the Corps' original model in those peak stress times. If in the event that there's too much water in the overall system, and that's where the flexibility that the Corps is going to be building in is really going to help our coast. But we are going to take water, and this is one thing I've been very consistent in saying. I want to make sure that's clear. The key thing is that we don't want to take on too much water in high stress times. The flexibility that the Corps is going to build into the plan, that they've already committed to, that they're going to build into the plan, I think that's what's going to help. I completely agree with you about 2018. What I'll say about 2018, that's when they were just following the LORS model and were not paying attention to what was actually happening off our coast. That was 2018. The Corps has realized that, and they're actually operating the system in a much more flexible way. And then the last thing also to keep in mind for everybody is there are still many water projects that are going to be coming online over the next few years. The C-43 reservoir is one of those projects that's going to be coming online in the next few years. There's still going to be water projects north of Lake Okeechobee to help manage lake level overall. These are the types of things that are going to be happening. The CERT plan that's going to actually help us with respect to the new LOSUM strategy and actually make it far easier for the Corps to manage not just discharges, but the quality of water that's moving throughout the Lake Okeechobee.
All right.
Congressman, thanks again for coming out and sharing some of that with us. Could you tell our constituents and yours the best way, the most productive way to get involved and who they could reach out to, send letters, just make their voice heard?
That guy over there. No, I'm just playing. The number one way is, first, go to my website. It's donalds.house.gov. My staff is always watching emails. We're a very responsive office. That's the number one way. Send us concerns, issues. If you just have questions or something that you might have heard on the news or saw on social media and you want more clarification. The one thing I always try to tell constituents is that, especially when it comes to water, to really understand, no pun intended, how voluminous it is, you really have to sit down for about 30 minutes and have a full conversation. Because, like I said, there's 6 different constituencies. You're dealing with Lake Okeechobee as a whole, where if you haven't been there, you should actually go and take a tour and get out on a boat and go out on the lake. It's actually quite beautiful. People fish out of the lake. There are communities that rely on the lake, not only from an economic perspective, but also, frankly, from a food perspective. And so those are things that are kind of lost in translation, on our coast and, frankly, on the other coast as well in Martin County. So contact my office. donalds.house.gov is the best way to get in contact with my team. We have phone numbers for our Cape Coral office and for the Naples office. My staff is always available to talk to anybody at any time, and we can answer questions.
Thanks for stopping by, Congressman. Going to stay in Southwest Florida this weekend?
Thinking about my schedule right now. I am most of the weekend, and then we have to head back to Washington because I heard they're trying to spend money. Got to get back.
It's probably a good weekend to be away from Washington.
Yeah, it's been a lot of good weekends to be away from Washington. I
All
can
right.
tell you that.
Well, we appreciate you stopping by, and feel free anytime. The door's always open to you, Congressman.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thanks so
Mayor.
much.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thanks
Thanks
so
for
much for coming down. All right. We'll continue, and it's public comment. Madam Clerk.
Steve Johnson.
Hello, my name is Steve Johnson. I'm a resident of Fort Myers Beach. Just a follow-up really from the M&P. There's a couple items here I just wanted to touch on extremely briefly. First, just for clarification for Councilman Allers, that the number lighting is in fact required by the FWC. It's not a suggestion. Also, as with regards to FDOT, there's discussion about the 4K lighting as a default, as a recommendation, but the actual guidelines are actually the requirement for FDOT for Estero Boulevard is as a wildlife area of concern. So ultimately, none of that really does matter if FDOT was in fact followed, which in this case, the choice has been to ignore FDOT regulations for a county road. And maybe last but not least, for Councilman Veach, there is a discussion about these higher lumen output amber lights, but I want you to realize that in that recommendation that there is a high illumination light of 16,000 lumens in the dual light. However, it's going to require more of those than a standalone amber light because of glare. Because it can produce more lumens is not a good thing. Basically, it produces more glare, so you're restricted to how far you can stretch those poles because of veiling luminance, which is the glare in your face. So even though you can produce all that, that's not really going to be the answer to the problem based on the lighting design. So with that being said, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. Next.
Emily Asp.
Good evening. My name is Emily Asp, and I'm a lighting project specialist with Sea Turtle Conservancy. I just wanted to follow up on the Estero Boulevard conversation from last meeting as well. Sea Turtle Conservancy, as with FWC, we recommend using amber lights year-round rather than doing a dual source. And the reason being is that the dual source has a few issues with it malfunctioning, which the consultants had kind of mentioned, but really they can default to white, and it happens quite frequently. So you will have a white light on during nesting season. FWC has documented cases of that, which can cause, of course, disorientations and issues. In addition to that, they oftentimes require more fixtures to actually have established area of coverage, just because within that housing you have both white and amber diodes, which in order to have strictly both of those, you need 2 separate drivers to run that. And so the fact that that wasn't mentioned by the consultant, I do kind of wonder if they are using true amber or if it's a PC phosphorus coated amber, just because usually you can get higher output with that. Unfortunately, phosphorus coated amber only changes our perception of what that color looks like, similar to putting a screen or a covering over something. It's not actually adjusting that wavelength. So I know they did mention nanometers a lot, so I would just ask to please see some spectrometer readings of that to kind of make sure that those are in fact those narrow band ambers that are required by FWC. And then I think that was all I wanted to say about those. Sorry about that. So thank you again for discussing this. We really applaud you for taking this on. And if you have any questions, Sea Conservancy is always willing to help with anything. We are working with properties in the area, have been doing lighting on private properties for the past 7 years or so. And right now we have a grant that works in Southwest Florida. So specifically, we're actually working with properties on Fort Myers Beach right now. We're very invested in the area as well and would like to give assistance in any way that we can.
Thank you. I wonder if you could leave a resume of some sort of those, or a list of those projects that you're working on or have worked on in the past.
Like a list of properties?
Yes,
Sure, we could get that information.
that'd be great. I'd love to see it.
We're always trying to increase it, so if you know any properties that have problematic lights that want to take advantage of our money,
Okay.
direct our own way.
Thank you. Amber, sounds like a love song. Okay. Next.
Jesse Perdon.
Councilman Perdon.
How's everyone doing? It's a pleasure to be down here in Fort Myers Beach. I've actually never been to your council chamber, so as another councilman, thank you for welcoming me into your house.
In the city of Bonita Springs, for those who don't know.
Bonita Springs.
Jesse Perdon.
I love Fort Myers Beach. If y'all didn't see Mayor Murphy when he was discussing the Big Carlos Bridge, he was so passionate and he was so good. He did such a good representation of Fort Myers Beach, and that's such a big deal. And I remember after I'd talked to the congressman about how good he did on that, and I don't think I've even really seen you to talk to you about that, but I've remembered that. So with that being said,
Thank you.
I understand, I intimately aware like dynamics on councils and things like that. So being on a council that is very dynamic, I just want to say that what I'm about to talk to you all about is just from an experience. You guys are going down a path that we went down a while ago. And I just kind of want to procedurally go through how we got there and how the results have been for us in Bonita Springs. And then you can take that, leave that, call me, I'll send you contracts, whatever you want, okay? So don't think of this as me trying to say, hey, here's what you should do. I want to tell you all about my experience so that you guys from your seat can kind of see what that road looks like. So essentially in Bonita Springs, long story short, when I got elected to council, it had been 13 years since we looked at the law enforcement contract with I decided that I wanted to do a more population-based analysis, and it turned out that we had grown 38% as a city. We're now over 64,000 people. So we didn't adapt or adjust to that. And so when we set that level of service, and then we went for a decade without addressing it, we started to see issues. And then to me, it was something that I thought, okay, let's look at this. So we did, and we actually, for the first time, were able to get a detective. So Bonita Springs, for the first time, has a detective now. We've never had one, so we had to beg, borrow, or steal one from the county. Completely understand the position that some of you all may be in the sense that Fort Myers Beach is the gem of Lee County. Your beaches bring a ton of people here, so with the amount of money that you give the county, it's kind of on them. But let me just say this. I represent a very rough and tumble blue-collar part of Bonita Springs. My district has definitely benefited, and I can tell you, like, walking down our downtown now, you have old people, you have young people, you have families, and people with strollers and things like that coming up to me, and they're saying, 6-7 years ago, we never could have done this. And we're now at 11 straight years of ad valorem increases. We are in our 9th consecutive year of crime going down, and I personally can't say that these things aren't connected. The community policing stuff that Lee County has been able to do for us, we have a set number that are in the community, and they're always the similar officers in the similar places. So if you're at Cafe of Life, you know which officers are down there. If you're in this part of town, so it's creating rapport between the officers and the community, and you really get with that so much, because people were talking to me about, why don't you guys just start a police force? You have 60,000 people, just do your own thing. The reality is, from a financial standpoint, we get choppers, we get boats, we get dogs of all kinds, we get bomb squad, we get hostage negotiation. We have an arsenal that could take down a small country with Lee County. It's way easier for us financially to outsource it and have Lee County take care of our streets. But if we went with the minimum number that they gave us, no disrespect to Lee County, but there's no way that we could hold the line like we do in Bonita. And I think that has a lot to do with people feeling safe downtown for the first. I'll never bash my own town. I love Bonita, but if you were down there a decade ago, the downtown that we just developed now, that is going to be beautiful down there, that was a trailer park. People were doing drugs and other nefarious activities. And now the Imperial River is about to be, we're going to have probably one of the most beautiful downtowns in Southwest Florida. So it's like that all changed due to our emphasis and our focus on law enforcement, because people who feel safe, you know, I mean, we're one of the number one city for families and for young professionals, giving them kind of a place to feel safe. And has really, I thought initially there was going to be pushback because of the political winds of everything. You like the police, you don't like the police. It was none of that. It was me wanting to maintain and take serious public safety, because if you do that, people will come. And you can see with our ad valorem increases and the rate that we're growing and the continued reduction in crime rates in Bonita, which used to be a very crime-ridden city, is now one of the safest places you can be. It's not a coincidence. So I'm not saying you should do it or you should not do it. I'm just trying to give you, from a city that was in a very bad place to a city that is now in a great place, the amount of money, I mean, I understand your budget isn't the exact same as Bonita, and I understand that. Every dollar matters. And I examine every single dollar I ever spend on council. I'm probably the most annoying about that. Public safety dollars are the one that I don't, because I know the return on investment for public safety is going to be huge, not only with the businesses, but with the people. And you guys have the coolest downtown anywhere in Southwest Florida. There's nowhere in Southwest Florida where you can be hanging out on the water with your family. You have restaurants, you have activity. But the problem also that comes with that type of density and that type of cool activity is the potential for problems. Then you guys unfairly get black eyes that you really shouldn't get, because I think your city has kind of very much like Bonita been a redheaded stepchild of Lee County, or, oh, the problems are there. There's not problems. There's so many good things that come out of your city. So I think that considering a modest increase that would increase the force on the beach on Lee County, it's going to be good for citizens and residents if it follows true to the same model that it did in Bonita Springs. With that being said, contracts, I'll be happy to send you, or anything else I can do for you, please let me know. But I appreciate the time. I appreciate you all letting me in your house and even letting me opine on something you guys are doing. But when I saw what you guys were going through, we had these exact same growing pains. I just wanted to share my experience with you also.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure the congressman gets home safely. Now, I was in your town, in your city, on September 11th. Had a great time down at the firehouse, and it was a beautiful ceremony, and was able to say hello to your mayor and a few council members and so forth, and had a great morning. Was happy to be there.
We consider you guys a great partner. I mean, I think the bridge was just the beginning. There's a lot of things that we are very simpatico on, but I mean, I'm excited for it. Y'all let us know, federally or the city level, y'all let us know if you need anything.
Thank you, sir. See you. Okay. Any other public comment? That's all. Local achievements and recognitions. Oh, we'll start with you.
I had something, but I don't recall what it was.
I'll come back to you. Councilman Adderholt.
In the interest of time, I'm going to pass tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
I as well.
Concur.
Okay, I'll keep it moving as well. Advisory committees, items and reports. Any advisory committees? Seeing none, we'll move on. Okay, next item is approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
There are no minutes.
Oh, no wonder there's no motion. Okay, we'll move on. The next item is the consent agenda. There are two items on there. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes updated town council policies and procedures and miscellaneous professional service renewals, which we've already discussed?
We've got a couple of small changes to the policies and procedures.
Okay, we'll pull that. Anything else about the professional services? Okay, is there a motion to approve item B of the consent agenda?
So moved.
For second? Second. Move second. Discussion? Action? It passes unanimously. Okay, Councilman Veach, item A, updated town council policies and procedures.
Okay, one thing, and I'm going to take the blame for this, but the cleanup is actually quite correct. It is, it's the partnership, it's not a, give it to you exactly, John. Yeah, it's the Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership. And another thing I didn't notice before is there's a mention of video that's available to people on the town council, and they mention DVD. That is.
Salute.
Actually, I've requested DVD copies of different meetings and been provided with those, and I think they are available if people want to ask the town to provide them.
Everything is also available without request. You go on the.
Right, but pursuant to, public information, if someone wants it in a DVD form, they've got some kind of handicap or whatever, it's still used, is what I'm saying.
Used. And I wanted me to be okay to at least mention that they're available, and the videos are available on the website, or.
I think both of those are clerical in nature, and I've got no problem with adding them.
Okay. Then there's two different places, and I went over this with John, this was his preference. It says email and texting policy, but then on page 24, it talks about digital communication, which is essentially the same thing. At the bottom of 24, it's talking about recordings, and it mentions item number 11 said any email or other digital or internet platform to communicate with the town. It seemed like we're not being consistent there. You know what I mean, John?
I'm sorry, where's the other reference?
On page 24, item number 11.
I see that on 11.
Right, and the other one is on page 14, where the header says email and texting policy.
Again, that sounds clerical to me, and I have no problem with making them consistent.
And I'm just thinking, since we're taking the opportunity to clean it up too.
I don't disagree.
Nothing really substantive, that's all I have.
Okay. I mean, we'll
Anybody else have anything?
No, I was going to go ahead and move to approve the resolution with the amendments as suggested by Mr. Veach.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to the administrative agenda now, and the first item is A, authorize the mayor and town manager to execute a renewal agreement for legal services with John R. Herron Jr. for an additional 1 year. Is there a motion to authorize the mayor and town manager to execute this renewal agreement? Mr. Herron? Someone makes a motion, then we can discuss it. Someone wants to make a motion.
I'll move approval in order to have discussion.
I'll second that. Discussion.
I don't have a lot to discuss. I had a chance to have a conversation with Mr. Herron about strengths and weaknesses of his performance, and it was a good conversation. And I'm satisfied that we're well served and that we should continue with another year of his contract.
I bug John all the time. I can't really complain too much about him not hung up on me, which is probably a pretty good thing. So I think John's giving a pretty sound legal advice. I know he's got a lot on his plate, but.
Councilman Allers?
I also have had conversations with John several times. We spoke today.
I've mentioned a few of the issues that I had. Until I hear from everyone else.
Vice Mayor.
I was pulling back because I'm the one in the past who keeps saying over and over again, I'd like to have council that's more local. That's nothing against John. I find him delightful to work with, but that's my problem. I believe it would be better if we had someone who was local.
Locals will hear that and say something. Gave John his annual browbeating that he so rightfully deserves, and he took it like a man, so enough for me. So, any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? There is one objection to the motion.
Thank you very much.
I won't object, seeing that my opinion is in the minority.
Okay. So the motion carries unanimously. The town attorney's contract will be extended for another year. Okay, the next item is we're going to go to the public hearings, and the first one is Resolution 21-47, setting the final millage rate for fiscal year 21-22. Now, do we want to table this and go on to the budget and come back to this?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a move?
I would move to table the resolution regarding the millage.
Okay, it's been moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Carries unanimously. Which brings us to Resolution 21-48, which is the final fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the final budget for fiscal year 2021-2022, commencing October 1st, 2021, and ending on September 30th, 2022, and providing for an effective date. So the public hearing is open.
Public hearing, we have to swear in witnesses.
Any public comment? Anybody wish to comment on the budget? One at all? Okay, we'll close that portion. Council.
Is this where we entertain initiatives and modifications?
Yeah, at this point in time, it would be to discuss any portion of the budget. You have any questions or concerns of staff, and to make any adjustments that you may wish, and that may or may not have an impact upon the setting of the millage, and adopt and then table it so we can take up the millage first as required by state law, or adopt, the millage first as required by state law.
And this is all done by motion.
I have a motion ready to present if anybody feels they're ready to move forward with a motion.
Go right ahead.
Okay. As a preamble, I guess I'd like to say that if the motion that I'm indicating passes, that my anticipation would be that I would support maintaining the current tax rate that we have rather than the higher rate that we had suggested. I would move to adopt a budget amended as follows, that the amended budget would increase the parking fee to $5 per hour, effective January 1st, 2022, with the additional income to be allocated to contingencies as previously discussed. At the fee schedule, also increase the registration fee for short-term rentals to $300, effective January 1st, 2022. Again, additional income from that to be allocated to contingency for projects we previously discussed. And I would remove the allocation for community policing from the budget.
Second that motion for discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
if I may offer an amendment in the spirit of compromise to the Vice Mayor's motion. I have a very passionate speech envisioned in my mind in defense of community policing, but I'd like to forego that. If we could possibly consider, again, as the Vice Mayor suggested, not increasing the millage rate, but utilizing the parking fee increase as Councilor Veach suggested last week, really that it's his, I don't want to speak for him, but he indicated that he did not believe that parking increase would cover, he believed it would more than cover the cost of a parking app. And I think he projected the revenues to be 600,000. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm wondering if my colleagues would consider, in the interest of trying to bring this community together, utilizing part of those part of that parking fee increase to cover the community policing program. Councilor Allers alluded to this last week, but we didn't have time at that point to see if the mayor's request to the sheriff would be heeded. It sounds as if it was, and I'd yield to the mayor if that's not the case.
Haven't heard a word.
Okay. That being the case, I would ask if my colleagues would I would ask respectfully if my colleagues would consider using part of those parking revenues to cover the cost of the community policing program, and that would be my amendment to the motion, respectfully.
If I remember my Robert's Rules of Orders, I have the prerogative to say I do not accept such amendment.
That's correct.
I would just point out one thing. First off, the parking fee increase, as I understand it, is unencumbered, but to raise the fee for the short-term rental has restrictions on it. So just to leave it for contingencies, when my preference would be to allocate it to some kind of housing program, as general as it needs to be.
The contingency, of course, would be bound by what we are limited legally to spend that money on. But I sought advice in using that wording and advice to use that.
Okay. And the other thing that I just, to Councilman Adderholt, is that community policing is like a package deal. There's nothing in to say that with the contingencies that are gained by the parking increase couldn't be used for additional policing without entering into a community policing program. And we already do this. Police contract and we pay for those extra police. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have a more targeted program as opposed to the community policing. Something where, let's say it's been knocked around that we have some issues with some of the homeless. If we have this on a contingency, it's not part of community policing, then we could take a more efficient approach and maybe include social services. Contract somebody for something besides policing to deal with a problem that really necessarily isn't a police issue. So by leaving it open to contingencies and not tying ourselves down to community policing, we have options we wouldn't have otherwise. And I am still very concerned about cost overruns of the big three projects. Those are my overriding concern with that required me to come up with the idea of an increase in parking fees. I say that anyway in supporting the motion that the Vice Mayor made.
I just have a procedural question, John, in reference to the motion. And this in no way disparages motion, Madam Vice Mayor. Do the proposed fees that are Councilman Veach is proposing, do those have to be included in a motion for the budget?
Those fees and the fee schedule is part of your budget adoption. So to the extent that you approve the vote of the motion made and seconded by the Vice Mayor, then we would make that change to your budget and the fee schedule to reflect those increased fees. They're on page...
Let's see. Okay. No, that's okay. You don't have to. Right, that's good enough for me. Okay. I just want to make sure. Okay, anything else? Councilman Allers?
I would be in support of part of the Vice Mayor's motion, the same rate that we currently have. I also agree with Councilman Adderholt as far as using the money. Maybe you don't want the word community policing. I'd like to see it earmarked, or at least part of it earmarked for public safety. Whether it's added police officers during times of need, if it's homeless program we put in place, whatever it is, but use it under the umbrella of public safety, not necessarily community policing.
Does the town manager already have that authority? We invested that authority in you already?
So By way of just refreshing everyone's memory, that any item above $25,000 comes to this council for approval in some way, shape, or form. To the extent that the money is, wishes to be allocated for any purpose in the future, this council would vote on that purpose and approve that purpose. So, this is plan for next year, but the actual decisions about actual expenditures occurs as a result of not you approving the budget, but the individual actions you take in the course of the year, of course, other than the salaries of the town employees. So, to the extent that you have full fiscal year to debate how to use any and all of these monies.
I think the point also, Councilman Allers, is you can tell there was some effort taken to keep this as general as possible because we only do this budget cycle once a year. So if the money is there, then the council can decide anywhere in the course of the year what to do with it. If it's not there, we can't. There's not even an earmark or an allocation for a parking fee or for housing program.
And I think this goes back to the discussion we had last week about not having a plan. So we're essentially telling our constituents we want to raise fees, visitors we want to raise fee without a plan for what we're going to do with it. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
I tell you, and still my number one concern with this parking, the reason for it was because we're already seeing our costs go up for these three projects. So we'd be left with either a decision to go way over budget and leave future councils with a financial mess, or to have to tell people who worked really hard for things like Bay Oaks that their grand vision is now, diminished.
So I think it's important to be said, just so the record is clear. If I heard the Vice Mayor correctly, she talked about implementing these fees effective January 1st, 2022, motion. So that means they're not starting before then, which means that for some reason, council decides that there is nothing to spend these monies on or doesn't want to increase the fees, you can defer that increase anytime in the first quarter of the fiscal year. So you're not taking irrevocable action up today. Very good.
And one thing that I don't know if it's really something to entertain is that with the fees and with the way that it works in the calendar is that fees are due next month, I think. So making the effective date in the fee January, it might as well be July. I mean, there'll be no income coming into that program for another year. That's your intent. Just wonder if that's something we should discuss. If we make it effective immediately, we'll get money into the program sooner.
If I may, with regard to the short-term rental fee, that there's actually a timeline on which that operates, in which we collect it. And frankly, off the top of my head, I don't know when it comes due for the next year's registration.
I can tell you the answer to that.
October 1st. So we from a practical standpoint, if you make that particular fee implemented effective January 1st of 2022, we would capture it in that increased fee in October of 2022.
No, that's not really, it's partially correct, but not exactly correct.
Because
Okay,
any
well,
renewal,
Hang on a second, you can't talk from there. Okay, so the way it works is this. Someone renewing for the first time after January 1st, 2022 would pay the new fee. Anyone who renews prior to that date would pay the old fee. Typical renewal period is October 1st, but not everybody renews, and properties change ownership during the course of the year, and new people would pay the new fee if they do it after January 1st, 2022.
To be clear, this would apply to renewals and new registrations. No distinction, right?
I'm not hearing one.
And the reason I worded it the way I did was partially because of my consultation with the town manager about the issue, number one. Number two, it was also offered to my fellow council members who had some hesitations about these fee increases. I offered it as an olive branch. So that was my reasoning.
And I'll keep going back to it. I won't keep beating up the community policing. I think that there's obviously not enough support for that, but I think that if this gets passed through with these increased fees, that to not pay attention to public safety as an umbrella, that could be lighting on Estero Boulevard, that could be painted crosswalks, that could be bus shelters, that could be all kinds of things that could fall within that public safety realm, not specifically
Dan,
policing.
I don't disagree with you. I just disagree with the fee for community policing. I am in favor of spending money on cameras, on various, maybe a social program of some kind that could help with homeless issues, with crosswalk lighting, with the lighting project. There's all kinds of things we can spend money on for public safety, and I do not disagree with those.
Well, and Roger, what you're saying is we don't necessarily have to earmark, if you will, the rate increase or part of whatever that rate increase would be, if it's the 600,000. Can we, or do we not need to, or what's the best practice as far as ensuring that a percentage of that money or all of that money or none of that money goes to the public safety?
Well, the short answer to your question is people are more vote to spend that money on whatever they vote to spend it on. That's what will get spent on. So if it's for street lighting, if it's for a decision, for example, that the county refuses to pay for the green bicycle markings along Estero Boulevard, and the council decides to pay for that itself and wants to take it out of this pot of money, or anything else in between that comes along in the course of the year. Let's just say the council decides that it wants me to hire a special detail for e-bikes on the sidewalks or on the beach or anything else. It's up to you. What this does is create the flexibility for you to continue to have dialogue and hopefully reach a 5-0 consensus on how to utilize this money as it goes forward without having to dot all the i's and cross all the t's today.
Okay. So what we have here is we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. The Vice Mayor as
Is it the only motion that can be made in the budget, or can there be other motions?
this,
Well, we would vote on this motion first, I think, before you have more motions.
Yeah, okay. Just wondering if there's opportunity to make another motion, or I won't edit this.
What I need to assist you all in understanding the process here. You all can talk about and create these motions, but ultimately the motion of adopting the budget as may have been amended by these various motions will have to be tabled, can then take up the a millage resolution and determine whether or not it impacts it, if there's any impact between how you may change the budget and the millage rate as it may be calculated one way or the other, because under Florida law, the millage resolution must be adopted before the budget resolution. You can
this
make changes to the budget, but when it comes time to then vote on the budget as amended, have to table that, take up, approve the resolution for the millage, and then go back. In the past, we've done it in reverse.
I think
Mr. Mayor, 2 points about that, just to be clear. One of the reasons among many that's done other than state law is, and no one gets caught in the thing where you sort of vote for budget thinking there's not a millage increase, and then it gets approved, and then you kind of locked in on the millage increase thing if you would do it in the inverse order. So that's one of the reasons why it's done that way. And to Councilor Veach's question is whether or not further issues could be raised with regard to the budget. And the answer is you could raise it up to the vice mayor to see whether or not she considers it a friendly amendment or not, and the mayor, whether, if she does, whether he does, and it could be incorporated, or they could say that it doesn't.
And the point I'm making, Vice Mayor, is would you entertain adding a budget item for the cameras?
The cameras were already on there.
Madam Vice Mayor, the cameras are not listed on the add-on list. However, by setting aside money as you described in your motion, it's the council's direction to look at cameras. We would go out and bring a contract for cameras before the council. As I suggested earlier, this would be one example. The council could theoretically approve that contract and theoretically approve using this pot of money to pay for it or any other pot of money to pay for it. That's legal.
Mr. Veach, if you want to make an amendment adding the cameras as a specific item, I would accept that amendment.
Okay, I would like to make an amendment to the motion, adding a $25,000 amount for security cameras.
Which I accept.
Number one.
Do you agree with is there a second to hit?
I'll second the discussion. The amendment. Objection? Amendment passes unanimously. Okay, amendment number one, we'll call that. Okay. Any other requests for amendments or requests?
Yes, before I move to table my motion, I'd like to know that I have a consensus of at least two other people, because I don't want to go back and vote on a lower.
No, I understand. What I'm going to ask you to do, Madam Vice Mayor, is to repeat your original motion, adding this amendment to it. And we'll take we call this a prospective vote on it, and we'll table, and then we'll go back to the millage, then we'll come back to this again.
Okay, my motion was to adopt a budget amended to change the fee schedule, increase the parking fee to $5 per hour effective January 1st, 2022. Additional income raised by this to be allocated to contingency, to increase the short-term rental registration fee to $300 effective January 1st, 2022. Again, additional income to be allocated to contingency, to remove the allocation for community policing, and to add the requested amount from Mr. Veach for cameras, for security cameras.
That motion has already been moved and seconded and amended. Now, that will have my support, that motion.
Will have my support.
Oh,
Okay, then I will move to table my motion so that we may bring back to the table the.
Could we have a moment to opine?
Sure. Why don't you do that under the discussion of the table motion? Make your motion. Go ahead, Roxanne.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
move to table the motion so that we can move back to the millage rate issue.
I will second that, and now we'll have discussion. Councilman Adderholt.
I'll provide an abbreviated version of what I was going to say on community policing, because I just think it needs to be said for the record. It wasn't too long ago this chamber was full of our citizens concerned about a recent shooting, each of them personally testifying to how they felt unsafe on parts of this island at certain times of the day and night. And that wasn't too long ago. And prior to that, prior to three of us being on this council, there was a tragic stabbing at the public library. And it seems like those instances are a distant memory, and I'm troubled by that, because this is an issue that's been discussed great length and submitted before our Public Safety Advisory Committee, who voted unanimously in support of a community policing program. one of the members of the Public Safety Committee's retired career police officer who lives on our island and is very active in our island. I hear comments on occasion about how Sanibel is doing things. Sanibel, an island roughly with similar population, has 24 to 25 police officers assigned full-time to that island. We, in effect, and I know it varies during holiday weeks, et cetera, but we, in effect, have a base amount of 2 officers. 25 for Sanibel, 2 for Fort Myers Beach. That seems odd to me. I'm troubled by that. I understand I'm in the minority on this particular issue. I respect my colleagues' opinion. I just felt some of these things need to be said, and I oppose this motion as a result. Thank you.
Welcome. Well, I would question your kind of numbers there, Councilman, because you're saying they have 25 active duty policemen all the time?
That's my understanding.
Not just 25
They actually have a police force, which I'm not advocating for, but that police force has 25 officers. It's my understanding.
Actually 26.
26.
Like at any given time, there are 26
Full-time.
officers.
Yes.
Their residents pay for.
They're not on duty the same way. He's comparing 24 to 2, when those 24 officers are not on duty all the time.
I think it's safe to say there's more than 2.
Right, but it's comparing apples to oranges, I think, is the point he's trying to make.
Because when we did have the shooting at the Atlantic Eye, there was more than 24 officers on the island at that time.
For the fact.
And I do also, the other thing, and the reason why I want to point out the flexibility of not necessarily going with community policing is the tragic stabbing of the director of our library. Social services may have had a better, more productive benefit, or may have been better at preventing that than policing. It was known to the...
I think there's a lot of that, I share a lot of the same thoughts that my fellow councilor Adderholt said over there, so I won't repeat all of it, but it seems like the focus, and I respect the opinion of my fellow councilors, they have spoken, but I think it's worth saying that to simply just say that community policing is only just police officers. I mean, we have a homeless issue that doesn't get brought up or get talked about. This could help with that. It doesn't get talked about. There's so many things that our base patrol cannot do. Having some extra police officers around to be able to assist them in things can go a long way. I won't keep beating it up. I think it's been covered enough. I don't know how much more I can say. I've tried everything, but I also will not be supporting this.
Okay, well, there's no.
The motion is the motion to table.
Yeah, there's no real.
I apologize.
There's not too much more to add to this, but I will tell you, with all due respect to Councilman Perdone, who was here from Bonita earlier, to give us his history of Bonita Springs, that's comparing apples to oranges. We are in no way what Bonita Springs was like at its worst. And its worst, I don't believe, was as bad as Councilman Perdone portrayed it to be. I've been here a lot longer than he has. But anyhow, with that being said, I'll tell you, and as far as Sanibel goes, their full-time police department, which they chose to have, and God bless them. That full-time police force would not have prevented that kid from coming down here that day and shooting a gun off on Fort Myers Beach or on Sanibel. It wouldn't prevent that. People are going to do stupid things. They're going to do stupid things. It's how the response is. And we're very satisfied with Lee County's response to these incidents. I mean, by all admissions, the captain himself stood before us when I asked him point blank. I asked him, are we safe down here in Fort Myers? By all means, you're safe. By all means, you're safe. I believe that. I believe that. Now, the moment they don't think that we're safe down here is the moment they have to look at themselves and say, we need to adjust the core level of service on Fort Myers Beach because we're not giving enough deputies down there. As soon as that happens, then we'll have a little more equilibrium down here. But I have to agree with my council members, and this is no disrespect to you, to Dan and Jim. I understand your positions exactly, but Yeah, I just don't believe that adding a few more down here to, to check on this, check on that, I don't see how that is going to keep us, it's going to increase our safety as a matter of incrementally for those amount of dollars. I don't see it. So anyhow, that being said, the motion is to table, and hearing no objection, that motion is tabled, and we'll go back to the resolution for setting the final millage rate, which, is there a motion to put it back on the floor?
I'll put that motion to put the millage rate back on the floor?
Yes.
It never was on, so you would just take it up now? You never?
Oh, we tabled it. Did we not?
You didn't, oh, did you table it?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we tabled
Okay,
it.
I'm sorry, yes.
So we didn't need to put it back on the floor with a motion.
Right.
Moved.
A second to, back on the table, resolution number 2147.
Moved and seconded. Any objection or any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, resolution 21-47, setting the final millage rate for fiscal year 21-22 is back on the floor. I read the resolution earlier.
I'll make a motion to,
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Because we have to say the magic words for this resolution, if you'll indulge me, let me read that into the record.
Go ahead.
This is Resolution 2147, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach adopting the final ad valorem millage rate for the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida for fiscal year 2021-2022, commencing October 1st, 2021, and ending September 30th, 2022, for the purpose of providing sufficient funds for the general fund and providing an effective date. As set forth in Section 2 of said resolution, the Town Council does hereby adopt the final operating ad valorem millage rate for fiscal year 2021-2022 at 0.9900 mils, which is 0.9900 for each 1,000 of assessed valuation. The current year rollback rate is 0.9096 mils. Accordingly, the final operating millage rate is 3.67% greater than the rolled back rate.
Thank you. Councilman Veach, were you ready to make a motion of some sort there?
since that resolution says 0.9, do I have to have a resolution to modify the millage rate?
Just to amend it to the number you want to.
Whatever, yeah.
And I'd like to make a motion to amend the millage rate to 0.095 mils.
We'll have to then calculate what that rollback rate is so we can read it into the record.
Rollback rate shouldn't.
That's the percentage.
That was one of the options originally, so you should have that already, shouldn't you? 9.5?
Assuming there's a second and then
Yeah, I was just double checking to make sure that .95 was the number, because I don't remember numbers well, Bill, so I was just double checking. And I would second, the rollback rate was in our prior, when we set it, so I don't have that in front of me, but it has already been calculated. It was in the original paperwork.
Yes.
we have to, in order to comply with state law, we have to announce it publicly what that number is, unfortunately.
Well, the rollback rate is the same, are you with the percentage increase, is that what you're talking about, John?
Yeah.
Amy, if we could pull up the agenda from the meeting where we set, remember what meeting I'm talking about?
In June?
I guess she's going to look for it.
She's going to calculate it, or we'll find it.
We take 5 so that you guys could grab a sandwich?
Not that hungry. Don't we have that available? It was originally, we originally had it at .095, right?
Right.
So we would have had the rollback rate with that, right?
There's 2 different numbers they've got to have besides the roll. There's the rollback rate and the other rate,
And the percentage.
percentage.
Oh, the percentage, okay. Okay, we'll break for 5 minutes while that is. Hold on
Before we
1
do
second.
that, for 1 second, is there at this point, do you anticipate any more questions for the staff? If not,
Oh, okay, yeah, does anyone have any, so we can let the staff go home, does anyone have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I'd like to thank everybody for their hard work, because I know that you do put your hearts and soul into doing this, and it's a lot of work on your part, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah,
The only one probably, I mean, Jason still has some stuff coming up here, don't you?
Oh, I mean,
You gonna stick around?
I'll second that. Thank you very much, and drive carefully. It's 7:09.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If I will read in the modified section 2 based upon the motion that's currently before the council. Section 2 of resolution number 21-47 will now read, the town council does hereby adopt the final operating ad valorem millage rate for fiscal year 2021-2022 at .9500 mils, which is 0.9500 for each 1,000 of assessed valuation. The current year rollback rate is 0.9096 mils. The final operating millage rate is 0.044% greater than the rolled back rate.
Okay, thank you for that. Where were we? Did we have a motion on the,
I made the motion, I think I seconded.
Okay, there's been a motion, there's been a second. Any further discussion on this millage rate? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously.
Public hearing.
Oh, excuse me, public hearing. I did ask the public earlier. Anyone from the public wish to speak about the millage rate?
In an abundance of caution, I also would probably recommend a roll call vote on
Okay.
this in the next, in the budget.
Seeing no one from the public, we'll close that portion and move, second it. No further discussion. We'll call a roll call. Councilman Allers.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hasselfrost.
Aye.
Mayor Murphy, aye. Councilman Adderholt.
Aye.
Councilman Veach.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously 5-0. Now, is there a motion to put back on the table Resolution 21-48?
I would move to place the amended, motion for the amended budget previously stated back on the table.
Second that. Any discussion? Any objection? That motion carries unanimously.
Roll call.
That's just, no, that was just to, for the,
To bring it back. I'm sorry.
okay, now, Vice Mayor, I hate to make you do it again, but would you restate your budget, your motion one more time with the amendment?
Move to adopt a budget amended as follows, to amend the fee schedule to increase the parking fee to $5 per hour effective January 1st, 2022. Additional income to be allocated to contingencies as previously discussed. To increase the short-term registration fee to $300 effective January 1st, 2022. Additional income to be allocated to contingencies as previously discussed. Remove the application for community policing. To add an item for security cameras in the amount of $25,000. That's the entire motion.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Just, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just wanted to make one more point. Based on a comment that you made before we put it back on, you had made a comment that community policing or an enhanced police presence would not have that gentleman from coming down and firing that gun. Although I agree with that statement, a community police officer could have potentially given the help to the homeless person that took Dr. Amerding's life. What I have to say on that.
Further discussion?
Just state that I disagree with that assertion. We need as social workers for folks. The police do not, we prefer not to have to deal with the homeless issue and the mentally ill.
It's true, but they are trained to get them the information to get the help if they so choose it.
I can tell you, I know the gentleman in question. I know the help he had been offered from multiple sources. So I know a lot about it. I do not believe that a community police officer would have made a difference in that situation.
And also, I'll be opposed to this motion, one for the community policing, but also I think that giving a rate increase like that with a 1-week notice to the public is not fair, especially with not having a plan to designate where that money is going to go. I just feel like it was sprung on them a little too prematurely, and there wasn't enough time to discuss it. For those reasons, I will not support this motion.
Any other discussion? Not, I'll call the roll. Councilman Veach.
Aye.
Councilman Adderholt.
Nay.
Mayor Murphy, aye. Vice Mayor Hasselfrost.
Aye.
Councilman Allers.
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. Councilman Allers and Adderholt dissenting. Okay, that's done. The next item is a variance 202100432842, which is Seaview Street variance to pool location and street setback. Mr. Green.
Evening, right? Good evening.
Hold on.
I'm sorry. There you go.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
the members of council, this item is quasi-judicial in nature. As a result, if anyone who's going to testify in this matter, please rise, raise your right hand. Did you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Last but not least, disclosure of any ex parte communications that the council members may have had with regard to this matter.
Councilman Allers.
A drive-by.
Vice Mayor?
I have none.
I have none.
None.
Proceed, sir.
Thank you, Jason Green, Community Development. The fun part of the evening in the agenda for you. 2842 Seaview Street is a request for an in-ground pool in the front of the house and in the street setback. You've seen a couple of these and you're going to see some more. As you recall, our code does not allow by right accessory structures, just pools and sheds forward of the front facade of the house. So therefore, there's a need for a variance for that. And then based on the setback to this. The house was built in 1984, building permits in 2020 and 2021. The applicant bought the property in 2020. It's residential multifamily zoning and environmentally critical zoning. So it's got EC zoning in the rear of the property. Their request is from section 341174B and table 34-3, which was, again, allow the pool forward of the house of the principal structure and a variance of 10 feet to the 25 feet. Plan showing the approximate location of the pool, the red box, towards Seaview Street. As you can see by the layout of the survey of the existing home, it's backing up against the EC zoning district boundary line, which is not allowed to be developed past, where the applicant is requesting relief. So there's really nowhere else to put the pool. The side yard also is narrow. The LPA recommendations are found on page 4 in your staff report and recommend approval by 5-0 vote with the conditions of approval. It was on August 10th. There was also a point that brought up about a hedge and a fence in the street along the front that is in the right-of-way potentially, and they'll address that. They can address that issue during their site plan review, which will follow this if approved. The findings of facts of the variance, or excuse me, section 34-87. The requirements for variances are on page 3 and 4 in your staff report, and recommendations are on page 4. And I recommended approval with conditions. I can go over those conditions if you have any questions. They do include landscape buffers to shield the pool. This pool also is not any more forward towards the street than the adjacent pool from the resort development that's to the west. Large pool serving a residential community over there. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them, and the applicant's here also to make a presentation.
Questions for Mr. Green? None? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
I will hear from the applicant now.
Thank you, council members. My name is John Cowart. I'm a planner with Waldrop Engineering, an agent for the applicant. Like Jason said, this is a request for variances for an accessory structure, an in-ground pool. The applicant is Roberto Cadena. He's not present tonight. Like I said, my name is John Cowart with Waldrop Engineering. This is a map of the project location showing the surrounding land uses. There is a large multifamily residence to the north with an adjacent private pool to the property in question to the northwest. See the surrounding use table there. The property is almost half an acre. It abuts the coastal control line. The house is set back around 3 foot 3 inches to 6 foot 5 inches from the coastal control line. The residence was bought in 1980, like Jason said, or was built in 1980, bought in November 2020. The future land use designation is Boulevard, which would allow the in-ground pool in question. The area is zoned residential multifamily, even though this is a single-family house. There are a lot of single-family homes in this area. Some photos of the subject property. The photo on the right looks toward the south across the front entrance to the property. There is an existing row of hedges that Jason mentioned that are in the right-of-way and will be addressed at the plan stage. The photo to the right kind of shows you where the proposed pool is going to be located. It's going to be set back from the right-of-way, which is not the edge of the pavement that you see there. These are descriptions of the two variances with the land development code sections. Shows the site plan, the 15-foot setback from the right-of-way. You can see the edge of the pavement is marked on delineated on the site plan. The pool area includes everything associated with the pool, including a deck. Like I said, the pool is in-ground, so there will be no above-ground structures. This is the variance criteria in the land development code. I can go through it quickly, but basically it's explaining that the first criteria that there's exceptional circumstances, and the applicant has an exceptional circumstance being so close to the coastal construction control line that he cannot build the pool there. Second criteria is that the variance is not a result of the actions of the applicant, because the applicant bought the property in 2020, well after the construction line was established. Third criteria, that there's not unreasonable burden caused by the application of the regulation, and just that it's important to note that the right-of-way is the only available location for the pool. So this is really the kind of the burden there. And then the finding that this variance would not be injurious to the neighborhood, since there is an adjacent pool to the north for the Cape Beach Club. Finally, that this has become so general or recurrent nature as to make it more reasonable to amend the regulation, and that's really up to the council. Like Jason has said, there have been other cases. I've picked out a few for this map that have been similar variances that have been approved. And staff report did come with some conditions, and the applicant has accepted all the conditions involved, some of which I described in this presentation. So we request approval of the variances with conditions that the applicant has accepted. Any questions about this? I could take them. I also have larger copies of the site plan if needed.
Okay. Any questions for the planner?
Just briefly, has the owner heard from any of the neighbors with any concerns on this particular proposal?
No, sir.
I would move to approve resolution number 21-44.
Wait, we have to have a comment.
Public hearing.
Sorry. You'd already done.
I like your speediness, though. I'll commend you on that. Thank you, sir. Sure. How old are you, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
30.
30. Yeah, I lost that head of hair by my mid-20s. But, anyhow, very well done. Questions for the planner? Okay, we'll close it. And anybody from the public wish to speak to this variance? Hearing none, we'll close that. Vice Mayor, did you want to say something?
Just move to approve resolution number 21-44. It already includes the conditions that were referenced by Jason.
I'll second that.
Move and second. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project. All right. Next two items, as aforementioned here by myself, have been continued until a later meeting.
Both of them.
We will not be addressing those, which leads us to final public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is the town manager's items. Mr. Town Manager.
I'll be very, very brief, Mr. Mayor. One is in the FDOT presentation today, I'm sure you took note of the fact that we'll have to have a discussion about the potential landscaping in the area at the foot of the bridge and who's going to be responsible for that. So I'll just leave that at that.
Understand.
Mr. Town Manager, on that, could you get us all a copy of that PowerPoint? Could you have that forwarded to us?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sorry, Roger, and with that, a shot in the dark of what the maintenance costs would be based on if they were to go with their current elaborate landscape?
Well, not to get too much into the weeds tonight, but there's maintenance, and then there's the potential trampling, walking through the landscape area effect that I think Councilman Allers was concerned about, or raised some concerns about. I think that's the bigger problem than the, whatever, by twice a month maintenance, but we'll have that discussion at that point in time. We did receive acknowledgement that our part of boating improvement program project looks like it's going to be recommended for funding at $130,500 and change. So I'm very proud to announce that to you. And last but not least, unless you would like to discuss the renewal of the contract of the special magistrate, our contract is within my procurement purview, so if you want to discuss it, we can put it on an MP. If not, I'll just renew the contract.
Heard nothing but excellent comments about the current magistrate.
John, you want to add your 2 cents to that?
I think that with her assistance and collectively with staff's assistance, she does very well, and we've been able to get a handle on a lot of the code enforcement matters to the point where the last several meetings, have been continued or canceled because we're working collectively with the property owners to bring the properties into compliance instead of having to bring them before the special magistrate. So things are working very smoothly.
That's great news. That's great news. Anybody else care to their 2 cents about it? I guess you have your direction. Go where.
I'll be renewing her contract. Again, like all our contracts, it does have a cancellation clause if your council change her mind prospectively.
On attorney's items.
Nothing.
I never heard any attorney that was going to say nothing. But, all right, good for you. Council members' items and reports. We have affordable housing, workforce housing as a listed item here. I presume that's you, Councilman Veach?
It is. Now, this is something that I wrote up in some detail, and I also included Sanibel's housing section. Now that, my understanding is now that that we've allocated funding for a housing program, that it would be appropriate to use some staff time to present us with the options of what other municipalities are doing. And then have us something that we can move forward with. This is presented, I just put all my thoughts into one section, so it's a starting point.
Well, thank you for all the work you did with that. I appreciate it. I can tell that you did some work to put that together, so, and it saves us a lot of talking time. For us to all be able to all read that and become a little more educated about the topic.
I understand there's a lot of different municipalities have taken different approaches. And I took some care to try to find ways that we could there's incentives for people, it's not all stick, that we can develop a workforce housing program without just throwing money at it. There's other ways.
Thank you.
Just a procedural question, Councilor. Are you hoping to put this on an M&P at some point where we could further vet this out, or is this the actual proposal that will become the policy, or what?
Well, that's a good question. I think that, my feeling is that it's probably good to have the staff work on this, see what's being done, what's legal, and then give us something to go with that. Thinking about as far as I can.
Lateral, I think where I see us at with this item is we have a potential funding source for the staff work. Staff would develop this concept and basically create a go-forward program for the council to review and consider and debate. And then if that go-forward program is blessed, we would go into implementation.
It's somewhat linked to our review of the LDC because some components of it have that aspect.
That's fine. I just want to make sure there's some opportunity for public input, because I've actually received some concerns about the program, potentially, and a lot of that, again, depends on how it's designed. So the fact that this is still a work in progress, I think, is fair.
It's in its infancy, I would say. Anything else, Bill?
And I do think, Councilman, that, this required probably changes to the comp plan, to the LDC, it requires setting up some kind of a nonprofit or land trust. So there's quite a bit of work before anything will get implemented.
No, sir?
No, that's it.
No, thank you.
I didn't ask you if you wanted a hamburger.
Should have paused in between the no and the thank you.
Vice Mayor?
In the interest of time this evening, I have nothing.
A real team player. Councilman Allers?
I do have just one thing. I'll keep it very brief, but it's in reference to the presentation we received from our lighting consultants. There was some discussion about potentially getting seeing what things would look like, amber versus white LED versus, using the word LED, they're both LED, but white versus amber. I just, this morning on my way to work, happened to notice that if you drive down Bonita Beach Road, and this is for my fellow councilors and anybody else that is listening still that wants to go out and kind of see for themselves, there's actually a really good example I noticed today. I drive by it every day and I never noticed it until today. If you drive down Bonita Beach Road towards 41, pay attention to what color those lights are that are on the boulevard there, that are similar to what we have out here. And as you make the curve and you come out to Highway 41 or 41, take a right. Anybody that wants to get up early or go late, go take a look. On the southbound side are amber lights. You get to the Collier County line. On the northbound side are a white LED light. So if you want to see what it looks like on an actual open road, that's a good little section. You can drive down one way and come back the other way and draw the conclusions for yourself.
What were your impressions having seen that? Because I'm curious.
Well, I'm sure we'll get into that discussion when we start talking about the lighting. As you well know, I'm in this field, so as I stated before, I think we have two obligations that we have to keep in mind. At the end of the day, whatever's chosen, as long as the coverage is there that we need, that's the most important thing for our island.
I mean, just visually seeing it yourself, what did you think, if you don't mind? I'm just curious, because it's interesting. It sounds like a great thing to look at. I just haven't seen it.
I mean, it's a good example of how it illuminates the road. I would like you to draw your own conclusion. To see, I don't want to skew anybody's thought process one way or another, but it's a small little section of road. If you want to get up early or go late, go take a look at it. Again, it's south of Bonita Beach Road on Highway 41. Go south till you get to the Collier Center line. Then all the lights are consistent from there on both sides. The northbound lane is, I don't know what the color temperature is. I didn't have time to get that information, or I'd have shared it with you. And I don't know what the amber side is either, as far as what the light fixtures are. I'm going to work on getting that information, but it's a good visual for you to be able to see real-world application of what it would look like.
And it's on 41?
41, yeah. Drive it every day and never noticed it.
I wonder why they would do that, have the two of them.
Like I said, I just noticed it today for some reason. I knew we were talking about this, and I just happened to pay attention looking up.
I see on Vanderbilt Drive or something like that, but I don't understand on 41. But anyhow, I will look at that. I'm up that early.
Or out that late.
And I'm not fishing. Okay. Anything else, sir? Okay. Just have one thing I mentioned, alluded to earlier, that I was at Bonita Springs for the 9/11 ceremony, which was fantastic. And the only reason I went down there was because our guys canceled theirs here on the beach, unfortunately, because of COVID concerns. But anyhow, I was down there with Ray Sandelli. Commissioner Sandelli was there. I sat with Ray and Mayor of Bonita Springs and other council members. And I don't know if you saw my Facebook post. You probably didn't. But the keynote speaker was this lady. I can't think of her name right now, but it was in one of the towers when it collapsed. Her workmates. She was the last person that they pulled out of there alive. She was under the rubble, and her keynote speech, her talk was so captivating. It made the hair on the back of my neck stand up while I was listening to it. It was fascinating to listen to how she was pinned down under this concrete, way down to probably the subcellars of the trade center. And she had one hand out of the concrete. And her testament is that she was under there for like 27 hours. And her testament is that somebody eventually came by and saw her hand waving, because she was pinned down otherwise underneath, and grabbed her hand. Said, "You're going to be just fine. She said, "Who are you?" And the guy says, "My name is Paul." So that was Paul. So anyhow, eventually they kept pulling the concrete back, and 27 hours later they found her, and she was the last live person to be pulled off of the pile there at the Trade Center site. And she said she's been looking for this guy Paul for 20 years, has never found him. So of course her testament is that she believes that was an angel sent from God, and she had a conversion to Christianity while she was underneath the rubble. So it was a fascinating story, and of course she wrote a book, and she was there signing the books and so forth. But it was a great day, and I'm glad I was there. It was very nice. There was one other item that I missed earlier. I have a proclamation that I want to read into the record real quickly, and it's for the Horizon Council and Lee County Economic Development. This is a Town of Fort Myers Beach proclamation. Whereas 2021 marks the 29th year that the Lee County Economic Development and Horizon Council and Horizon Foundation have celebrated with an Industry Appreciation Day in Lee County, and whereas local companies provide jobs and support the local and state tax base, and industry in Lee County is vital to both the local and state economy, and whereas industry in Lee County is vital to a community's health, creation of new jobs, community's quality of life, and are key to a prosperous future, and whereas the expansion of local industry directly impacts job opportunities and our standard of living, and whereas recognition of the accomplishments of our businesses and industries is essential to foster further growth and development of our local and Lee County's economic development. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach that October 22nd, 2021 is hereby designated as Industry Appreciation Awards Day. Given under my hand and the seal of the Office of the Mayor this 16th day of September 2021, Raymond P. Murphy, Mayor. So this is in recognition of the Horizon Council, and street to council here. I've asked in years past, we've always had a table down there for the luncheon. It's a big to-do. And I've asked the clerk to look into the possibility of the town getting that. So if anybody wants to attend that, whenever that is, it's a very nice luncheon to attend. Oh, that's my report. And if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we'll adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
So moved. Second. Any discussion? No objection. We are adjourned at 7:40.